The funeral hall was completely silent where Yoon Seol stood near the memorial of her deceased parents. There was only a sorrowful silence in the air. Her tears were not stopping, and in her heart, she was only looking for the support of her grandfather, whose only child she was. For as long as she can remember, her grandfather has been her greatest strength. After the death of her parents, he was the one who saved her from every trouble. At that very moment, Yoon Seol decided that she would do anything for her grandfather's happiness. But with time, even the greatest supports grow weak. Yoon Seol had recently learned a very bitter truth. Her grandfather had last-stage pancreatic cancer. He had very few days left, and he made a request. He wanted to see her marriage before he died. Yoon Seol's heart started to panic. Marriage. She was still very young, and all of this felt very sudden. But seeing her grandfather's worry, she had no choice left. In college, Seo Kyun came to Yoon Seol, who was her very light-hearted and charming friend. Suddenly an idea came to her mind, and she pulled him out of the classroom. Coming outside, she hesitated a little and suddenly spoke out. Seo Kyun, will you marry me? Seo Kyun was completely stunned. Then he smiled and said, This is very sudden. But when you are proposing, how can I say no? He laughingly continued, But let's get married when we turn 30. Okay. Yoon Seol was just about to open her mouth to explain to him when her phone rang. A friend of his had called him to meet some beautiful girls nearby. Seo Kyun's smile widened. Sounds fun. Let's continue this tomorrow. Yoon Seol, I have to go now. Yoon Seol gave a fake smile. Okay, go. I was just joking anyway. Seo Kyun laughingly pulled her cheeks. I knew it, but still my heart was beating very fast. Saying this, he walked away from the campus while waving his hand. Yoon Seol was watching him go, and her heart began to feel heavy. Irritated, she muttered to herself, What have I done? What was I expecting from a person who is never serious? Can he take me seriously even once? Was my face not serious enough? Lost in these thoughts, she collided with someone. Startled, she looked up and quickly started apologizing. A very grumpy-looking man stopped her in the middle. Next time, take care of where you're walking. Don't daydream. Hearing his voice, Yoon Seol got angry. If you saw me daydreaming, you could have moved to the side. In fact, you came and collided with me yourself. You did this on purpose, didn't you? Before he could reply, a car passed by them very quickly. With great agility, that man grabbed her hand and pulled her to safety. Because of that jerk, she collided straight with his chest, and their faces came so close that their lips accidentally touched. Time seemed to stop for a moment. Realizing what happened, the man immediately let her go. Yoon Seol stumbled, and her face turned red with shame. Don't get me wrong, he said bluntly while dusting his sleeve. The car was very fast. I only pulled you to save you. Yoon Seol stammered and said, Yes, thanks. She began to compose herself while avoiding his gaze. Let's just assume that nothing like that happened. Both of our days are bad. Without listening to his reply, she turned to leave. But before she could get away, his mocking voice echoed in the air. Won't you even say thanks to me for saving your life? There was a mischievous smile on his lips. Then, with a glint in his eyes, he further said, Or are you thinking of leaving without paying the penalty for that kiss? Yoon Seol, who was still shaken by the accident, turned and said, What kiss? Our lips just touched. Don't act like it's a big deal. She taunted him and continued, What's the matter? Don't tell me no one has ever kissed you until today. That man said smilingly, Why do you think so? The truth is, you look like you have never kissed anyone before. Irritated, Yoon Seol said, What is so special about you? I don't even remember that I kissed you. His smile deepened. Really, people usually don't forget their first kiss so easily. Her anger flared up at his teasing manner. First kiss? Have you gone mad? For your information, let me tell you, you are the 108th person I have kissed, so if this wasn't worth remembering, then excuse me. Saying this, she walked away stomping her feet and said in a sharp voice, And if you are seen again, don't talk to me, you perverted person. He stood there watching her go in anger, and there was a different kind of amusement in his eyes. 108th, huh? Interesting, he whispered, and seeing her go far away, a light smile appeared on his face. Back at the campus, Yoon Seol was sitting in class, but her attention was elsewhere. Her friends were laughing around her and talking about upcoming parties and outings, but she was unable to focus. Seo Kyun, who was always the life of the group, was joking with others. Suddenly, the professor came inside, and everyone became silent. "Good morning, everyone," he said seriously. "Today we have a special guest lecturer with us who will teach us until next semester." That man introduced himself in a calm voice. "Good morning. My name is Kang Jun Young." Yoon Seol completely froze, and her eyes widened. She gripped her notebook tightly, and her face filled with shock and shame. Her mind screamed, "The same rude person from yesterday." Her cheeks began to burn with shame, and she leaned down in her seat. When his gaze started looking at everyone in the classroom, Yoon Seol's nervousness increased. She hid behind her notebook and whispered to herself, "Did I see wrong? Please, I hope I am wrong." Suddenly his voice echoed, which was very clear and piercing. "You, the one holding the notebook. What is your name?" Cowering, Yoon Seol froze completely. "I am Choi Yoon Seol, sir," she said, stammering and trying to compose her voice. A mischievous smile appeared on his lips. "Miss Cho," he started saying very calmly, "I never knew that chewing a book makes its content go into the brain faster." The whole class echoed with laughter, and Yoon Seol's face turned red with shame. Before she could compose herself, his smile deepened. "Well, no matter," he said while flipping pages with amusement. "Why don't you explain page 108? His deliberate pause before the next words made Yoon Seol's heartbeat race. "Oh, my mistake," he said in a mischievous manner. "I meant page 10.8. There was a different glint in his eyes when he further said, "Start, Miss Cho. Explain something to us, too." He was clearly enjoying seeing her troubled. As soon as the class ended, Soojin greeted Professor Kang in a very casual way. "You didn't tell me that you were going to teach here," she asked in a light-hearted manner. "Let's have coffee together." Kang Jun-young's face was completely professional. He replied while maintaining distance. "I have some important work to settle after this. Anyway, it's not right for a professor and student to have coffee together." "Oh, Soojin, do you know him?" a classmate asked in surprise. Soojin replied without any special reaction. "Yes, our families know each other." Later, Kwon Yoon, who was Yoon Seol's friend, gave the idea of eating jampong for lunch. But Yoon Seol refused. "I am going straight home. I'm just a little tired," she said with a faint smile. While passing through the hallway, she saw that Kang Jun-young was walking ahead of her. Gathering courage, she called out to him. "Mr. Kang, can we talk for a minute?" He stopped and turned. His sharp gaze was directly in Yoon Seol's eyes. "I apologize for the way our first meeting happened." She started hesitantly. "But can we not bring our old matters into the class?" "Me?" he asked without any emotion. "Do you not remember me?" His mischievous smile returned. "I never bring personal issues into my class. I only behave like a professor who gives advice to his students." There was a slight taunt in his voice when he said, "Don't be so arrogant." Yoon Seol's mouth remained open in surprise, but she had no words to speak. As he turned and walked away from there, she remained standing there, and her anger began to boil inside. That same evening when she was in her apartment, Yoon Seol's phone rang. It was her grandfather's call. She immediately picked up the phone. "Yoon Seol, how are you?" he asked happily. "I am fine, Grandpa. How are you?" she replied. Yes, I am fine. Listen, I am coming to the city this Saturday to meet the son of an old friend. You should also come with us." "Okay, I have no plans, so I will come." She said, "Very good. I will pick you up. See you soon." The call was disconnected and she just kept looking at her phone. The next day came with a new freshness, and Yoon Seol found herself being taken to a very large estate with her grandfather. Kong Tae-jin, her grandfather, called out affectionately when the host moved towards them. The owner of such a big company does not need to come to the gate himself to receive guests. Yoon Seol's grandfather joked lightly, but I had to come. I wanted to meet this young lady. Kang Tae-jin replied laughingly. As she bowed politely, her grandfather introduced them. These are the children of my deceased friend Kang Dong-woo. They were also very close friends of your parents and are the owners of TJ Corp. Yoon Seol said with a sweet smile, It's very nice to meet you. Tae-jin said affectionately, You have become a very beautiful young lady. Hae-suk said while inviting them inside, Please come in. While walking, Tae-jin said, Your family has done a lot for us. Without you, TJ Corp wouldn't be here today. Her grandfather interrupted and said, Oh, don't say that. Upon entering the house, there was a bit of sadness in Tae-jin's voice. Yoon Seol, I am sorry that I couldn't meet you after your parents passed away. Hae-suk stopped him affectionately. Don't talk about such heavy things right now, Tae-jin said, changing the atmosphere. Yoon Seol, if you want, you can consider us your family. I would be very happy. If I could get a daughter, maybe my children would get a sister and an elder brother. Hae-suk said smilingly, Tae-jin, you are embarrassing her. You always wanted a daughter, and now you are not letting the chance go. Tae-jin turned with pride and gestured, Oh, there is my second son, Jun Seol. Say hello. That boy bowed politely and said, It's nice to meet you. I am Kang Jun Seol. While they were talking, the sound of heavy boots echoed in the hallway. Everyone turned, and just then their elder son came into the room. For a moment, there was silence there because Yoon Seol's gaze met none other than Kang Jun-young, the same person who had saved her from the fast car a few days ago. Her eyes widened with surprise. Both froze completely and were unable to look at each other with certainty. Outside the house, Jun-young broke the silence. Fate's sense of humor is amazing, isn't it? There was a joke in his voice. Yoon Seol took a deep breath and controlled her anger. Why don't we start again? Thanks for saving my life, she said politely but with some distance. Mischief flashed in Jun-young's eyes. Oh, you said you didn't remember, but now it seems you remember everything. Yoon Seol stopped him in the middle and her face turned red. No need for details. And yes, I remember everything, sir. She said the last word with a strange smile. He laughed slowly and said, Besides the class, you can just call me Jun-young. Yoon Seol straightened herself and refused while shaking her head. How could I? You are older than me and obviously much more experienced too. His smile widened further. Oh, experienced. You mean from the experience of the first kiss? But I couldn't compete with you. You've done this 108 times. Her face turned red with anger and shame, and she started glaring at him. He kept laughing without a care and said, Why, Miss Cho? I'm right, aren't I? Her anger reached the seventh heaven. You are truly strange. I am only talking politely because of my grandpa and your parents, but you... She warned him while pointing a finger. Be careful. Outside, we don't know each other. Understood? He replied with a casual shrug. That's exactly what I want too. There's no need to pretend to be nice. Leaning in a little closer, he continued. Anyway, it doesn't suit me. As he turned to leave, Yoon Seol remained standing there with her fists clenched, and her anger kept boiling inside. Back at college, Yoon Seol told everything to her friend, that she was looking for a guy for marriage and that she had even proposed to Seo Kyun. Her friend shouted in surprise, How can you marry just anyone like that? Then she scolded Yoon Seol. You need someone mature and settled. You can't just choose anyone suddenly. Suddenly, her friend's face lit up as if an idea had struck her. I know my aunt runs a matchmaking business. Let's arrange a blind date for you. Without waiting for an answer, she announced the decision. I will set everything up for this Saturday. On Saturday, Yoon Seol was waiting for her date in a hotel. When the man arrived, he introduced himself politely, but soon he started singing praises of his own handsomeness. The next Saturday, she met another man who was so crazy about his diet that he didn't even let Yoon Seol eat properly. As the weeks passed, she met many kinds of men. Some were very clingy and hitting on her directly, while some believed in ghosts and started telling scary stories. She was beginning to understand how difficult it is to find the right guy. But one Saturday, she met a man who seemed quite decent. Just when she was thinking that maybe this one is right, the teacup slipped from her hand. That man immediately offered his handkerchief. This small act of help ignited a ray of hope in Yoon Seol's heart that maybe a good person could still be found. On the other side of the same hotel, Jun Young was arguing with his mother on the phone. Why did you make a promise without asking me? Irritation was clear in his voice. His mother explained calmly, I didn't do it. My friend wanted her daughter to meet you because your company is doing great work. As soon as the call ended, someone called his name. A young woman was standing in front of him, smiling. Remembering his mother's words, Jun Young looked at her very seriously and asked, You look somewhat familiar. Have we met before? That girl replied with a bright smile. Yes, we met last year at Prince Ivan's birthday party. Without even listening to his reply, she started rambling about how she could use her high connections to grow his business. Jun Young was clearly getting annoyed by her constant talking. Finally, he stood up and spoke politely. It was nice meeting you, but I have some work to settle, so I should leave now. That girl quickly said that perhaps she had come at the wrong time and started leaving on her own. As soon as she left, Jun Young took a breath of relief and started feeling at peace. On the other side of the hotel, Yoon Seol's meeting was going well. In the course of conversation, that man started asking about her family, but suddenly the tone of his talk changed when he said, I have spent 30 million to meet someone of my level. Yoon Seol was stunned to hear this, and shock was clear on her face. Seeing her reaction, that man suddenly grabbed her hand and said, Don't lie to me. I know how low-class and useless people like you are. Come to the room with me, otherwise I will report you. Yoon Seol's anger flared up and she snapped back, Go ahead and report to the police. I'm not afraid. Just then, a familiar voice fell upon the ears of Jun Young, who was passing by, and he stopped right there. Ignoring her words, the man said, If you want money, I can help you. Yoon Seol was trying to control her anger. Before the man could say anything else, someone grabbed his hand tightly. Yoon Seol looked up and Jun Young was standing there, looking at the man with great anger. He squeezed the hand so hard that the man stepped back in pain. Without saying anything, Jun Young grabbed Yoon Seol's hand and took her out of there quickly. Yoon Seol was stumbling while trying to keep pace with him. Taking a breath, she said, Thanks. If you weren't there, I don't know what would have happened. Then she looked at her hand and said, Now can you let go of my hand? Jun Young let go of her hand and asked, So you were here for a blind date? Irritated, she replied, Whatever it is, it's none of your business. Jun Young turned towards her and spoke mockingly. Looking at the clothes you're wearing, it seems it was indeed a date. Otherwise, what that man said was true. Yoon Seol's face turned red with shame, and she immediately denied it. She sat on a nearby chair and, taking a deep breath, started explaining. My grandfather is ill, and it is his last wish to see my marriage. My friend's aunt runs a matchmaking agency. So I thought I should give this a try. Jun Young's face became very serious and he asked, I thought marriage and love were every woman's dream. Is going on blind dates like this really right? Yoon Seol took another deep breath and replied, It's not easy, but for my grandfather's happiness, I don't need love. I just need the title of a wife. Jun Young started looking at her very intently as if something was going on in his mind. She slowly continued, I thought that man was a good person. I thought I would finally be able to fulfill my grandfather's wish. Jun Young pulled a chair near her and sat down without saying anything. He was calculating something in his mind. Then he looked at her and said, Choi Yoon Seol, marry me. Yoon Seol froze completely for a moment. She was totally shocked. The next moment, she started laughing nervously. You must be joking. His face remained just as serious, and he replied, Didn't you say that if someone asked you for marriage, you wouldn't refuse? Her laughter vanished. Yes, but why you? Jun Young leaned forward a bit and spoke calmly, because it is beneficial for both of us. We fulfill each other's criteria. Our families know each other, and if you marry me, your grandfather will also be happy. Yoon Seol became suspicious and asked, But what is the benefit for you in this? He replied, I also need the status of a husband, just as you need the title of a wife. She began to understand the reality, and her eyes remained wide open. Wait, are you also here for that? Cutting her off, he said, Yes, I don't want to waste my time on these blind dates. If I marry someone else, I will have to take care of their feelings, but you only care about the title. This will be convenient for both of us. Yoon Seol looked at him intently and whispered, I can't even imagine that we are going to get married. Then after pausing for a while, she said, Can I get some time to think? With a reassuring smile, Jun Young said, Fine, I give you 3 days. Meet me on the third day at 5 p.m. in the same parking lot where we first met. If you don't come, it will mean that you have rejected my offer. 3 days later, as promised, Jun Young was standing in the parking lot waiting. He looked at his watch. It was 4:50 in the afternoon. His gaze was fixed on the deserted path. Minutes passed and he checked the time again. Now it was 5:10. Feeling dejected, he opened his car door and thought to himself, What exactly was I expecting by coming here? Just as he was about to sit in the car, someone called his name. He turned and saw Yoon Seol running towards him out of breath. Sorry, so sorry. I got late. She said, panting, My class stretched longer than expected. Jun Young's face was still serious. He said, You are 10 minutes late. Managing her breath, she replied, I have come to accept your offer, but I have one condition. She stood straight and looked at him firmly. I want this marriage to remain a secret, at least until I graduate. You are very popular on campus, and if this gets out, it will be a huge trouble for me. A slight smile appeared on Jun Young's lips, and he nodded and said, Fine. He extended his hand and said, Then it will be nice working with you, Miss Choi. And he suddenly pulled her towards him, and she stumbled into his arms. He held her firmly. Surprised, she put her hands on his chest and shouted while pushing him back. What are you doing? Why did you hug me so suddenly? With a smirk, he leaned in a little closer and said, Well, now that we are a couple, we should look the part. During dinner at the Kang mansion, the atmosphere became a bit tense because everyone's attention was on Jun Young, who had just mentioned sharing some news. He said with a very calm face, I am going to marry Choi Yoon Seol. His father's face lit up with joy. Mr. Choi's granddaughter, that is great news, he said with enthusiasm. On the contrary, clouds of worry appeared on Mrs. Kang's face. His father gave his approval with a nod. I felt something like this when they came to meet us. But I wasn't sure. Jun Young replied very casually, We have been dating each other for quite some time, but I didn't know that our parents were already acquainted. Mrs. Kang interrupted and asked in her stern voice, Since when have you two been in a relationship? You were teaching at her campus only last week. Isn't this decision to marry a bit hasty? Jun Young looked directly into her eyes and replied straight. We were dating long before I started teaching there. I just hadn't told you. Then with a light smile, he continued, And that's why I don't like it when you fix my blind dates with your friends' daughters. Don't worry, Mom. I am marrying Yoon Seol because I love her. Mrs. Kang's eyes widened, and she started thinking nervously to herself. Does he even know what love actually is? Irritated, she tightened her grip on the fork in her hand. However, she maintained a show of calm on her face. With a forced smile, she said, Jun Young, why don't you bring her here? I want to talk to her myself. On the phone, Yoon Seol was stunned to hear this news. Nervously, she asked, what if they get suspicious? Jun Young's tone was still calm. He replied, just stick to the plan. Give the same answer to everything as we discussed. I will wait for you at my old spot. Don't be late. As soon as the call ended, Yoon Seol kept staring at her phone, and restlessness began in her chest. She thought, how can I possibly stay calm? The next day at the Kang house, Mrs. Kang looked at her with great disappointment and said, how could Jun Young leave you alone like this? Feeling awkward, Yoon Seol replied, some very important work came up for him. That's why I came alone. Mrs. Kang examined her for a moment and then said, he has told us about the marriage, but you are still in college. Isn't all this happening a bit early? Yoon Seol composed herself and replied firmly, we have decided that we will keep it a secret until I graduate. Expressing doubt, Mrs. Kang asked again in a somewhat sharp voice, how long have you two been dating? And why didn't you tell us before? Sensing the tension, Yoon Seol tried to clear her worry and said, keeping her voice steady, We are really very serious about this relationship. Hearing this, Mrs. Kang calmed down a bit, and the expression on her face softened. It's not that I don't like you, she said thoughtfully. I just have some questions. She looked directly into Yoon Seol's eyes and asked very seriously, do you really love my son? Yoon Seol tried her best to look sincere and replied, yes, I love him with all my heart. Mrs. Kang narrowed her eyes and then asked, does Jun Young also love you? Yoon Seol went completely numb. Her mind started searching for an answer quickly. Before she could say anything, a familiar voice interrupted. Mom, shouldn't you ask me this question? Yoon Seol was startled when Jun Young entered the room and pulled her close by putting his hand on her shoulder. Holding her in his arms, he said to Mrs. Kang, I told you that we love each other. Now, what more should I do to make you believe? He looked down at Yoon Seol, and a mischievous smile appeared on his lips. Mom isn't asking you anything strange, right? Honey. Yoon Seol, feeling awkward, shook her head and replied, no, she is just concerned for you. Mrs. Kang was watching all this silently, and her worry was increasing. As soon as they stepped out of the house, Yoon Seol complained. Did you really need to do that? Her tone was quite troubled. Jun Young replied very casually, how else would Mom have believed us? She snapped back, I didn't need a hug. He said with a slight smile, you should have seen your face when she was asking you that question. You were looking very strange, especially when I hugged you. She said irritably, why wouldn't I look strange? We don't even know each other, and you hadn't even told me beforehand. When they reached her house, she said thanks politely and tried to get out of the car. But before she could get out, Jun Young grabbed her hand and brought it to his lips and kissed it. It seems we need to practice, he said teasingly. Her eyes widened and her face turned completely red. Practice? She whispered nervously. Yes, practice, he replied. Whenever we get a chance, we have to look like a real couple. She jerked her hand away and snapped back. No, we don't need any of that. He teased again. I can handle it well. Look, you've already gotten confused, just like right now. He came even closer to her and leaned towards her with mischievous eyes, especially when her cheeks turned even redder with shame. Nervously, she pushed him back. I said I don't need it, she shouted and quickly got out of the car. As soon as she left, her phone rang. Seeing that it was her grandfather's call, she immediately picked it up. From the other side, her grandfather's voice was very happy and full of excitement. You should have told me earlier. I would have agreed to your marriage then and there. Hearing his happiness, a smile came to her face. However, she also felt a bit nervous. She thought, now it's too late to back out. After the call ended, she turned back towards the car. Leaning inside through the window, she said, "Fine then, let's practice." As she came even closer inside the car, she asked hesitantly, "Will we really have to practice kissing?" He looked at her. There was a mischievous glint in his eyes. "What do you think?" Without waiting for an answer, he caught her by the neck and gently held her face in his hands. The next moment, his lips touched her lips. She went completely numb. Her eyes remained wide open in surprise. As time passed, that moment deepened, and she kept getting lost in it. After a long time, Jun Young pulled back with a light smile. This was a wedding kiss. He said very casually and caressed her lips with his thumb. "We are going to get married soon, so practicing for it is only natural. Right?" Still in a shaken state, she just nodded without saying anything and left immediately from there. Inside the car, Jun Young leaned back and started rubbing the back of his neck. Remembering what had just happened, his cheeks had also turned slightly red. The next day at college, when Yoon Seol looked at her friends, she remembered her conversation with Jun Young. "We are keeping this a secret, but can I tell one of my friends? I need someone who can support me." She had asked, and he had agreed. Now looking at her friends, she was hesitating about whom to trust. Later, when she was walking with Kwon Yoon, she gathered courage and said, "I need to talk to you about something." Kwon Yoon asked with a teasing smile, "What is it? Are you getting married or something?" Feeling awkward, Yoon Seol replied, "To be honest, yes." Kwon froze completely. Her eyes widened in surprise. "What?" Fearing someone else might overhear them, Yoon Seol took her to a quiet place. When they were alone, she took a deep breath and said, "I am going to marry Mr. Kang." Kwon pointed a finger at her and said, "I knew it. I knew something was going on between you two." "Shh, speak slowly," Yoon Seol whispered, trying to calm her down. "Only you know about this. So please keep it a secret." Her friend nodded and hugged her tightly. "Congratulations. Finally, you found a way." But after a while, Kwon Yun's smile turned into worry. "But why is he asking for marriage? What is his reason?" Yoon Seol decided to tell the truth. "He is exactly like me. He also just wants the status and doesn't want to waste his time." Kwon Yun thought for a moment and then asked, "Wait, is he the same one who saved you from all those blind dates?" Before Yoon Seol could reply, Kwon Yun smiled, mischievously. "He is like your white knight." "Right? Who comes riding on a white horse to save everyone." As Kwon's imagination began to run wild, Yoon Seol rolled her eyes. But before she could say anything, Seo Kyun came up behind them. "What are you two whispering about?" he asked jokingly, and started leading them toward the campus cafe. "Let's go have coffee." In the coffee shop, Jun Young was sitting quietly, sipping his coffee. As he looked outside, his gaze fell on a group of 3 people coming toward the cafe, laughing. His eyes fixed on the one person he was going to marry. Seeing Yoon Seol's shining smile, his face lit up, and for a moment, Jun Young couldn't take his eyes off her. Suddenly, a voice broke his thoughts. "Jun Young." He turned to see Sujin standing nearby. He replied casually, "Hello, Sujin." Sujin sat down next to him with a sweet smile and said, "If I had known you were coming here, I would have joined you earlier." While they were talking, the group came inside the cafe. Seeing Sujin, Seo Kyun waved enthusiastically. "Sujin." "Oh, Mr. Kang is here too?" he said in surprise. Then Seo Kyun looked at Jun Young with excitement and asked, "We are going out to eat. Would you and Sujin like to join us?" Jun Young looked at Yoon Seol, who was gesturing for him to refuse. A mischievous smile appeared on his lips, and he ignored her signals. He replied to Seo Kyun, "Fine, I'll come." Seo Kyun said happily, "Great, then let's go now." Sitting in the restaurant, Yoon Seol was feeling quite restless because of Jun Young's presence. The atmosphere there felt very tense to her, and she couldn't relax. As usual, Seo Kyun gave her a half-cooked egg, which he often gave her while eating together. "You like this, right?" he said, placing the egg on her plate. Jun Young saw all this, and his gaze remained fixed on the two of them. Seeing him staring, Seo Kyun explained with a smile, "Yoon Seol is from Gyeoje Island. She loves eggs on top of her food. It's common there." Jun Young smiled slightly and turned to Yoon Seol and said, "Oh, I didn't know that. So when did you shift to Seoul?" Before Yoon Seol could say anything, Seo Kyun spoke up again. "She came here when college started. Before that, she lived with her grandfather in Gyeoje." Yoon Seol felt very awkward and thought to herself, why can't he keep his mouth shut? Her thoughts were broken when Seo Kyun took some food out of her bowl with his chopsticks. Irritated, she snapped, "Hey, don't put your chopsticks in my food. Here, now you eat all of it." Seeing their bickering, Seo Kyun laughed and said, "Wow, what a cute bonding you two have." Then he smilingly put his hand on Yoon Seol's shoulder and said, "Yes, we are indeed very close friends." Jun Young remained silent, and it was hard to read the expression on his face. However, Yoon Seol could feel that something was wrong. Kwon Yun also took a cold breath silently because she also found all this very strange. After finishing the meal, Seo Kyun and his companions left. The other three said goodbye to them, and sensing the heat of the atmosphere, Kwon Yun said, "I think I should leave now too." Yoon Seol also wanted to leave with her, but before she could move, Jun Young grabbed her bag from behind and stopped her. Seeing this, she only said, "Okay, you go first." When everyone had left, Jun Young looked at her and said in direct words, "You should have told me earlier that you have a boyfriend. This is very uncomfortable for me." Irritated, Yoon Seol snapped, "He is not my boyfriend." She glared at him and continued, "And why did you even agree to come?" Jun Young replied calmly, "We decided that we would keep our relationship a secret on campus. But that doesn't mean we don't know each other at all. I was just trying to be natural in front of my students." Looking at him, Yoon Seol thought, I know this isn't a real marriage, but how can this man stay so calm? As he started to leave, he ordered, "Walk with me to the car." She felt a little hurt and thought, what exactly am I expecting from a person like Mr. Kang? Then suddenly he extended his hand toward her. Surprised, she asked, "What?" He replied very smoothly, "We should practice whenever we get a chance, right?" She hesitated and looked at him for a moment. Finally, she put her hand in his. Walking hand in hand, she thought, after all, this relationship is supposed to be without feelings, right? She made up her mind. If he can be cold, so can I. When they reached the car, Jun Young opened the door and commented, "I noticed you are still uncomfortable holding hands." Then with a slight smile, he continued, "You should have been an expert in this by now, considering you've kissed 108 times." Yoon Seol glared at him. She didn't know whether to get angry or let it go. Thinking there was no harm in going along, she just said, "Sorry." To make herself look better, she grabbed his hand again and asked, "Like this or like this?" Experimenting with different ways of holding hands, she asked, "Which one looks more romantic?" Jun Young intertwined his fingers with hers and held her hand firmly. "Like this," he said, looking into her eyes. Yoon Seol started looking at him and felt the warmth of his hand. For a moment, she didn't know what to reply. Her heartbeat had accelerated on its own. When Yoon Seol was talking to her friend Kwon Yoon, her friend expressed her concern over the nature of this marriage. "It's solid legally, but it's still not real. How long do you two plan to keep up this act?" Kwon Yoon asked seriously. Yoon Seol said to herself, "She's right. I have to make a plan." She thought, Jun Young is a successful businessman. There's no way he hasn't thought all this through. But what about me? Will I just keep following him without thinking for myself? The next day, inside Jun Young's car, she handed him a paper. "What is this?" he asked, narrowing his eyebrows. "This is a letter of agreement," she replied confidently. "You keep one copy. It's a marriage agreement so that neither of us suffers a loss. Jun Young looked at the paper intently. This is right, he muttered while reading the points. First point, keeping the marriage a secret. This is right. But marital status would be a better term for this. It makes things clearer. He glanced at her. I have no problem with the first point, but if you are telling one of your friends, then I will also tell one of my friends. Moving forward, he read the second point. Behaving correctly. I have no problem with this either. Then he reached the third point. Personal lives will remain separate, he read aloud. Before he could say anything, she interrupted. Yes, we aren't really getting married, so we are free to do whatever we want. He smiled mischievously and raised his eyebrows. So you can go out with your boyfriend? His gaze became even sharper. It's not like that. There was a glint in his eyes as he continued reading. Suddenly he said, I don't agree with the fourth point. If we don't show love in front of our families, how will they believe us? She explained firmly. There's no need to do it all the time, and you'll have to tell me beforehand. He shook his head. That's not practical. We'll have to act according to the occasion. She snapped back, but we won't meet much. We can plan ahead. He leaned back comfortably and dropped a bombshell. Oh, I forgot to mention. After the marriage, my mother wants us to stay in the family house until you graduate. That is one of her conditions. Her eyes narrowed. And you are telling me this now? Ignoring her irritation, he continued. That's why points 4 and 5 should be removed. As for point 6, he paused and looked at her. If your grandfather is no longer here, there will be no benefit for you in this relationship. So, I can understand this. Her anger erupted. Why remove point 5? He replied simply and came closer to her. I think it's not necessary. His smile deepened when he asked, Do you think I will do something with you, or... He paused and whispered while looking into her eyes. Are you afraid that you will lose control? Her cheeks turned red with anger and she glared at him. Fine, she said, gritting her teeth and crossed out point 4, but point 5 stays. I will change the point. She handed him the changed agreement. He read it aloud. Not sleeping in the same bed. Yes, she replied firmly. This marriage is a business, not an emotional relationship. Right? Without any argument, he took the paper and signed it. She looked at him seriously and said, When your work is done, close your eyes. He got a bit confused. Why? Before he could understand anything, he saw that she was leaning toward him and her eyes were closed. He froze completely. His mind started racing. He opened his eyes a little and understood her hesitation. Nervously, she grabbed his cheeks. Ah, sorry, I forgot to take off my hat. I was just practicing the wedding kiss. Before she could finish her sentence, he reached out, removed her hat, and threw it aside. In one jerk, he leaned toward her and took her face in his hands. Wedding kiss? He whispered in a low voice. The groom starts. As he came closer, her heartbeat accelerated. Her gaze was locked in his. As he placed his lips on hers, her breath hitched. They both got lost in that moment and began to understand the significance of this relationship. As the days passed and the wedding day approached, Yoon Seol's phone was ringing constantly. Bookings for the venue, wedding preparations, and updates on many small details were coming in. She was going everywhere with Jun Young's mother, whether it was shopping for their bedroom, tasting the wedding cake, or trying on wedding dresses. One afternoon, as she put on her wedding dress and stood in front of the mirror, she suddenly realized that even though this marriage was a contract, it all felt very real. She kept looking at herself in the mirror, and a storm of emotions began to rise in her mind. The wedding function was to take place at their old house on Gyeoje Island. While walking in the garden, she saw how quickly the work of decorations, flowers, and tables was going on. But she couldn't understand why she wasn't feeling happy. Inside the house, her aunt came to her and asked with concern, Where is Jun Young? I haven't seen him yet. He should have been brought here by now. Hearing this, restlessness began in Yoon Seol's heart. and she started feeling a strange emptiness. Suddenly, someone called her name. She turned toward the door, and there stood her future husband. He was standing there with his luggage, and there was a comforting smile on his face. As soon as she saw him, Yoon Seol felt a great sense of relief, and her heart suddenly filled with joy. Seeing her condition, Jun Young came to her and took the box from her hand. He said, "Sorry, I came without telling you." Before they could say anything else, her aunt arrived there, and Yoon Seol immediately introduced her to Jun Young. When her aunt and Jun Young started talking about the wedding, Yoon Seol's eyes remained fixed on him. Without her realizing it, a smile appeared on her face, and she felt true peace and happiness. At night, everyone was sitting at the dinner table in the Choi house talking. Yoon Seol's aunt scolded her affectionately. "You should eat more, otherwise you will faint on the wedding day." Yoon Seol refused and said, "Aunt, I can't eat much, otherwise my dress won't fit." Sitting nearby, Jun Young said with great confidence, "Don't worry, Aunt. After marriage, I will take care that she eats her fill." Yoon Seol nodded and said, "See, now you can relax." Her aunt said with a smile, "It's no wonder that Yoon Seol fell in love at first sight." Hearing this, Jun Young raised his eyebrows, turned to her and said, "Oh, really? She never told me this." Her grandfather said while laughing, "She is like that. She doesn't always say what she feels, but she will love you with all her heart." Later, when Yoon Seol was preparing the room for Jun Young, he came inside with his belongings. Looking around, he asked, "Is this your room?" She replied, "Yes, tonight I will sleep in my aunt's room. If you feel uncomfortable here, then sorry for that." He said simply, "Okay, no problem." She asked softly, "Why didn't you tell me before that you were coming? I would have kept a better room ready for you." He looked at her for a moment. Then, reaching out his hand, he very lovingly tucked a strand of her hair behind her ear. "Because my bride-to-be didn't even bother to contact me a day before the wedding. So what else could I do, except come looking for her myself?" She was left staring at him at this sudden behavior, and he smiled slightly. She said from the bottom of her heart, "Thank you for coming." Jun Young's smile deepened, and he came closer to her. Then he gently kissed her forehead. Stepping back, he said affectionately, "Good night, my bride." Hearing this, her heart suddenly started beating fast. On the wedding day, everything was ready for the ceremony to begin. While Jun Young was getting ready, his friend said, "I can't believe you're getting married. Until a few days ago, you were going on blind dates sent by your mom. By the way, who is this bride?" With a smile, Jun Young replied, "Certainly not the one I met on some blind date." His friend's tone became serious. "Then who?" Ignoring the question, Jun Young knocked on the door of the room where Yoon Seol was getting ready. Her friend opened the door and said she wasn't ready yet, but Jun Young didn't listen. He assured her it will only take a minute and went inside. He called out, "Yoon Seol?" But as soon as he looked up, he froze right there and his eyes widened. Yoon Seol was standing in front of him. She looked like a very beautiful bride in her wedding gown. Seeing him staring, she asked, "Yes?" When he realized he had been standing silently for a long time, Jun Young cleared his throat and pointed towards his friend. "This is my business partner and groomsman. I thought I'd introduce you." She politely joined her hands and then introduced her friend to Jun Young's friend. After the introductions, Jun Young reminded his friend, "Since this is a secret marriage, no one in the office should know." His friend nodded. "I understand. I'll go out first to practice." Yoon Seol's friend also said, "I'm leaving too. You two talk alone for now." Before leaving, both advised, "Just relax, okay?" After the door closed, Yoon Seol looked at Jun Young nervously. "Do we really look that tense?" Jun Young replied with full confidence, "I am not. Are you?" She said, "Of course I am. If our act is caught, my grandfather will be heartbroken." Placing her hand on her chest, she continued, "So this is how it feels. No wonder people run away on their wedding day." Jun Young came closer to her and put his hand on her shoulder. So, as they advised, should we practice kissing to relax? He leaned towards her. His face was very close to hers, and there was only a few inches of distance between their lips. But if we do this, you will have to do your makeup again, he teased her with a mischievous smile. Nervously, she pushed him back. Why do you always keep thinking about kissing? You are such a pervert. Jun Young laughed and stepped back with a playful smile. See, now your nervousness has disappeared, hasn't it? She just stood there and watched him go. She thought, what just happened? Her heart was still beating fast. In the soft shade of the wedding pavilion, Jun Young was waiting for his bride. His eyes were fixed on the path ahead, and just then Yoon Seol arrived. She was walking towards him very slowly and shyly, holding her grandfather's hand. As soon as their eyes met, Yoon Seol's heartbeat quickened and she lowered her gaze. She couldn't even look at him continuously, but Jun Young stood perfectly calm and his eyes were fixed on Yoon Seol. When she finally reached him, Jun Young couldn't wait any longer and extended his hand towards her. Her grandfather looked at his hand and then slowly placed Yoon Seol's hand in Jun Young's. This was a silent gesture of trust. The wedding rituals proceeded, and as they put rings on each other, their family's happiness knew no bounds. Everyone's faces were lit with smiles. Then suddenly the groomsman announced, "Now it's time for the kiss to complete the wedding vows." Hearing this, Yoon Seol was completely startled. Jun Young whispered in her ear, "Now it's time to show the result of our practice. Relax, you look very stiff." As he reached out to lift her veil, she whispered nervously, "But we didn't practice in front of so many people." He laughed lightly and said reassuringly, "Just close your eyes." She looked at him with wide eyes and then, following his word, slowly closed her eyes. Jun Young leaned towards her. His face was very close to hers, and the next moment their lips met, and they completed their marriage with a kiss. The people present there erupted in applause, and with this they were now officially Mr. and Mrs. Kong. After their parents left, Yoon Seol and Jun Young saw them off and thanked them for everything. Now that they were alone, a strange silence filled the room. Breaking this silence, Jun Young asked, "Do you want to bathe first, or should I go?" Yoon Seol replied, "Oh, you go first. I will pack my things." Jun Young nodded and walked towards the bathroom. Standing alone, she was lost in thought near the bed. From tonight, this room belonged to both of them. That big bed was enough for two people. Their clothes were also neatly arranged together. Every shared thing of theirs was making this marriage feel very real, especially Jun Young's presence. Jun Young soon came back in his nightwear. He said, "I'm free, now you can go to bathe." "Did you pack your things?" She replied, "Yes, your mother had already done most of it." Saying this, she opened the gift box given by her friend Youngin. Seeing Jun Young's pajamas, she commented, "Oh, you are wearing the pajamas given by Aunt." She had insisted a lot on matching sets. Suddenly her eyes widened in shock when she opened the box a little more. She hurriedly closed it tightly. Jun Young asked with curiosity, "What's in it?" She replied awkwardly, "Oh, nothing, just a gift from Youngin." He said while coming closer, "Is it for both of us? Let me see." Before she could finish her sentence, the box opened in the struggle to pull it away, and all the items fell out, including a very sexy nightgown. She screamed, "Hey, don't look! I didn't ask for this!" and started picking it up like crazy. Jun Young said with a smile, "I didn't even say anything. You look very nervous. After all, what are you thinking, Yoon Seol?" She turned back abruptly, and her eyes widened. She shouted, "Who is nervous? This is the first time I'm sharing a room with a man. That's why I'm being careful." "Actually, you are nervous. You are afraid that I might do something, right?" Jun Young came even closer and said in a low voice, "We are husband and wife. We can do this anytime." He ran his thumb over her lips. "What do you think?" Her hands automatically pressed against Jun Young's chest. She asked, stuttering, "What? What thought?" Her face was turning red with shame. Without saying anything, he leaned towards her. He touched her lips and then turned it into a deep kiss. Her eyes widened, but soon they closed, and she gripped his shirt tightly. She was lost in that moment. In the middle of the kiss, he opened his eyes and smiled, seeing her reaction. Stepping back, he whispered slowly, "Wait, everyone is still awake, so it would be better if we don't go any further than this." Her face turned bright red. She said, "Who said we have to go further? Anyway, it's in the contract. We are not sleeping on the same bed." He laughed. "Well, it seems we'll have to be patient until our honeymoon." Yoon Seol thought irritably, "Does this man ever listen to anyone?" As the night deepened in the Kong house, Yoon Seol sat on the bed secretly watching Jun Young, who was busy with his tablet while sitting on the sofa. She told herself, "Calm down, Yoon Seol. A new couple's first night is special, but just think of him as a roommate. He won't do anything." Jun Young said comfortably, "If you want to turn off the light, that's fine." He saw that she had fallen asleep while sitting on the bed. He looked at her for a moment. Then he quietly picked up the blanket, took her in his arms, and laid her down comfortably. He kept looking at her peaceful face. His gaze stopped at her lips. He couldn't take his eyes off her, but in the end he wrapped the blanket properly around her and tucked her hair behind her ear. She muttered a little in her sleep and then turned over and slept peacefully. Morning came very early. The loud sound of the alarm woke Yoon Seol with a start. She sat straight up and started thinking, when did I actually fall asleep? She looked towards the sofa, but it was empty. She nervously checked the other side of the bed, but no one was there either. She wondered where he had gone. Going downstairs, she greeted her in-laws affectionately. "Good morning, father. Good morning, mother. Did you sleep well?" Mr. Kang replied affectionately. "Good morning, child. Yes, we are fine. You tell us." Before she could say anything, Mrs. Kang spoke in between. "Where is Jun Young?" Just then, a voice came from behind. "I am here." Turning back, she saw Jun Young looking like he had just come from a run. Mrs. Kang scolded him. "Jun Young, exercise even on this day? You should have been with your wife. It's her first day here." Jun Young said simply, "Sorry, Mom." She pushed him towards the stairs and said, "Go quickly, take a shower and come down." While going up the stairs, he looked back and saw Yoon Seol talking happily with the family members. In the kitchen, Mrs. Kang said, "Child, you have classes, so you don't need to help with cooking." But feeling responsible, Yoon Seol said, "Oh, I can help." After finishing breakfast, Jun Young stood up and said, "Thanks for the food. Now I'm going to work." He turned towards Yoon Seol and placed his hand lovingly on her waist. Leaning near her ear, he said softly, "Finish your breakfast, dear. I'm leaving now." The family members started smiling, seeing the love between them. Feeling a little nervous but continuing the act, Yoon Seol also lightly took him in her arms and said, "I'm done, so I'll come to see you out." As soon as they reached outside, Jun Young said with a smile, "Yoon Seol, your acting is getting better. It looks totally real." He bowed his head and asked jokingly, "Or have you started enjoying this new identity?" Yoon Seol asked hesitantly and cautiously, "It's nothing like that, but I wanted to ask one thing. Did you really sleep on the sofa last night?" Jun Young held his shoulder as if it were hurting and said, "Yes, and now my whole body is aching. Do you think your husband is as dirty as a germ that you don't even want to sleep with me?" She snapped back, saying that it was part of their agreement. Jun Young was enjoying watching her cheeks turn red. He found it even more amusing to see the anger on Yoon Seol's face. Later, while Yoon Seol was sitting on the bus, Jun Young's words kept spinning in her head. She wondered what he meant. Does he want to make me feel bad so that I let him sleep on the bed? She sighed heavily. It's only the first day and things are so tangled. I didn't think being Kang Jun Young's wife would be harder than expected. He is such an odd person. How should I behave with him? Couldn't he have made this marriage a bit easier? Just then, her gaze fell on the wedding ring on her finger, and she realized something. She shouldn't wear the wedding ring at school. She stopped at a nearby shop and bought some fashion rings. Now, wearing many rings on her fingers, she headed toward her class. In the classroom, Seyon asked Yoon Seol, "Did you really not see Yoon Seol?" Frustrated, she snapped, "How many times will you ask me?" "No, I haven't seen her." Just then, Yoon Seol came in panting. Seokhyun immediately jumped from his seat. Waving his hand, he called out, "Hey, Yoon Seol, sit here." When she sat down, he added, "I saved this seat for you." She replied, "Oh, thanks." Seon noticed and said, "Where were you? It's very strange for you to be late. You look quite tired." She said hesitantly, "I'm fine. I just moved house." He asked curiously, "Oh, where?" Yoon Seol explained, "It's a bit far, about a 40-minute commute." He questioned again, "Why? Your old house was near the campus." Before she could answer, Seon cut in. Her grandfather was very worried about her, so she is now living with relatives. Yoon Seol nodded in agreement with a strange smile. Noticing the rings on her fingers, Seok Hyun grabbed her hand. He asked, "Since when did you start wearing rings?" Before getting an answer, he said, smiling, "Oh, you're following the latest trend, right?" While the two were joking around, Jun Young entered the class and his sharp eyes caught this scene. Late at night, when Jun Young returned home, he was unbuttoning his shirt as he entered the living room. Yun Sol's voice startled him. "Do you always come home this late?" He replied, "I thought you would be asleep by now." She explained, "Not yet. I still have some assignments to finish." He asked teasingly, "Why don't you study in the study room? Or were you waiting for me?" She shot back, "Don't flatter yourself. I told you I was studying." He asked, "Do you always study this late?" She admitted, "Not always." He said sternly, "Don't wait for me tomorrow. Just go to sleep." She replied, "I wasn't waiting." Before going to change, Jun Young said, "Fine, maybe you're studying, but there's no need to stay up this late." Suddenly her phone rang and she turned. It was Seok Hyun. She quickly cut the call. Jun Young questioned, "Why didn't you pick up?" She lied. It was an unknown number. The phone rang again. Jun Young advised, "Don't ignore it. If someone is calling this late, it might be urgent." Reluctantly, she picked up. "Hello, Yun Sol. Why were you ignoring my calls?" Seok Hyun's voice came through. She scolded him crossly, "Do you even know what time it is?" He said innocently, "I just wanted to talk." She said, "If it's not urgent, I'm hanging up. Remember, I moved house." He asked suspiciously, "Are you sharing a room with someone?" Looking at Jun Young, she replied, "Yes, I have a roommate. Don't call me unnecessarily at night. Bye." As she hung up, she turned to Jun Young. "It wasn't urgent. I'm going to sleep now, okay?" He asked, "By that roommate, did you mean me?" She muttered, "Well, think of it that way. Good night." He stood there, speechless. The next morning, Jun Young went out for his usual early morning run. When Yun Sol woke up, her eyes fell on the empty sofa. She thought about how he wakes up so early and comes home so late. Is it really okay for him to sleep on the couch every night? She felt a bit guilty. That night, when Jun Young returned quietly after 1 a.m., he saw Yoon Sol fast asleep with her phone lying next to her. He thought to himself, "I've been telling you not to wait for me for the past few days, but when your roommate isn't here, you talk to Seok Hyun." Looking at the phone, his gaze grew deep. Irritated, he turned to change into his nightwear. When he leaned down to move her phone after coming back, Yun Sol woke up as she felt the movement. She whispered sleepily, "Jun Young, are you home?" Caught suddenly, he replied, "Oh, it's not what you think. I was just moving your phone." She assured him sweetly, "I wasn't thinking anything. I just wanted to say that if you don't sleep on the couch." He stopped there in surprise. She explained, "I thought about it. It's not right to make you sleep on the couch every night. I made that rule because I thought there would be separate beds. But there's only one bed here, and it's unfair." Seeing him still frozen, she asked, "What happened?" Jun Young asked cautiously, "Are you sure? Of course, I won't do anything strange. I just don't want to make you uncomfortable." Turning her face away slightly, she replied, "I'm not scared. It's just that this position is a bit awkward." When she looked back, there was a faint smile on his lips. He warned jokingly, "But remember, I have a habit of kicking in my sleep." Jun Young lay down on the other side of the bed. Facing away from him, she thought, "What am I doing, letting him sleep here?" Closing her eyes, she convinced herself, "Relax, Yoon Seol. Just think of it like a school camping trip." Suddenly, Jun Young pulled her into his arms from behind. She whispered quickly, "What are you doing?" He whispered back, "If we sleep like this, you won't be able to kick me. And I don't want you going to the sofa after I fall asleep." His warmth surrounded her and she couldn't argue. Gradually, she closed her eyes and both fell into a peaceful sleep in each other's embrace. The next morning, as Jun Young was walking, memories of the previous night kept spinning in his mind, and a small smile appeared on his face. Reaching home, he went straight to the bedroom. He called out, "Yoon Seol, what time is your class today? Should we go together?" But the room was empty. He called her name and searched every corner of the house, but she was nowhere to be found. Worried, he asked his mom, and she replied calmly, "Oh, she mentioned some assignment and left early. Didn't she tell you?" He stood there, having no answer. At college, Yoon Seol, Kyung Yoon, and Seok Hyun were walking together and drinking coffee. Yoon Seol said, "This is very refreshing." Seok Hyun teased her, "Did you get enough sleep or did you have a fight with your roommate?" She thought, "There was no fight. It's just that we slept together for the first time." She remembered how peaceful it was sleeping next to Jun Young. She felt very safe in his arms. She was a bit hesitant to face him in the morning, so she had left intentionally before he woke up. Suddenly, Seok Hyun asked, "Hey, is your roommate my type?" Yoon Seol scolded him, "You always try to take advantage of every opportunity." He said in his defense, "What's wrong with that? I just want to know about her." Then Kyung Yoon raised her hand and said, "Oh, I've met her." Seok Hyun asked eagerly, "Really? Tell me more about her." Kyung Yoon said thoughtfully, "She's both beautiful and handsome. She has black hair." Seok Hyun turned to Yoon Seol and said jokingly, "Please introduce me to her. After all, we are friends." At that moment, Jun Young arrived there. He greeted, "Good afternoon." Except for Yoon Seol, everyone else replied, "Good afternoon, Mr. Kang." Their eyes met and a tension could be felt between them. Seok Hyun, unaware of their relationship, started talking to Jun Young. Kyung Eun said softly, "Looks like his wish is fulfilled. He met your roommate." Noticing the ring on Jun Young's finger, Seok Hyun asked curiously, "Mr. Kang, you're wearing a ring? Are you married?" Hearing this, Yoon Seol snapped her head back. Kyung Yoon handled the situation. "Oh, if I'm not wrong, this is a military service ring, right?" Yoon Seol also quickly agreed, "Yes, I've seen one like that before." Seok Hyun accepted their explanation and, grabbing Yoon Seol's hand, said, "People are crazy about rings these days. Look, Yoon Seol is wearing them too." She pulled her hand back irritably. Seok Hyun added, "I told you last night that I've seen people wearing such rings in clubs too." Jun Young listened to their conversation silently, his sharp gaze fixed on them. Seeing such an intense look, the pressure on Yoon Seol began to mount. She thought, "Is he angry? Will we have to talk about this?" That evening at home, Yoon Seol asked cautiously, "Why did you wear the ring today?" He shot back with a question, "Haven't you also worn yours?" She explained, "Yes, but at least I'm hiding it with other rings." He got straight to the point. "Why? Are you afraid Seok Hyun will see it?" Yoon Seol snapped, "Why are you bringing his name into this?" He replied, "Because he—" Jun Young suddenly stopped. He realized he shouldn't let his feelings get in the middle of this contract marriage. Without a word, he grabbed her hand firmly and commanded, "Never take this ring off." Yoon Sol's eyes widened at this action and her face turned red with shame. Pulling her hand away, she shouted, "Why are you acting like this? Are you playing with my feelings?" He replied, "What play? According to our contract, you are my wife. You were the one who insisted on a marriage without feelings. Are you just following the contract? Or what about your feelings?" Hearing this, she was stunned and had no answer. Later that night, when they were both in bed, Jun Young started thinking, "Feelings? They have no meaning. Whatever I am doing is just fulfilling my duty. Many couples live together even without love. I should have said this, but why couldn't I?" The next morning at breakfast, Mrs. Kang asked, "Have you two planned your honeymoon? It's not good to delay it much after the wedding. Jun Young, don't stay too busy and take your wife on a vacation." Yoon Sol replied, "We are thinking of going to Guam." Mr. Kang said, "That's very good." Mrs. Kang asked excitedly, "So when is the plan?" Jun Young agreed, "Early summer sounds right." Yoon Sol added, "We are setting the dates according to our projects right now." Then Mrs. Kang said with a smile, "So, let's go shopping this weekend." Hesitantly, Yoon Sol nodded. "Okay, Mom." Later at the mall, Yoon Sol tried on a beautiful dress chosen by Mrs. Kang. She said, "Mom, I think t-shirts and shorts will be enough." Mrs. Kang insisted affectionately, "You can buy what you like later, but I want to get this for you. You look very lovely in this." Yoon Sol thanked her sincerely. "Thank you, Mom." Mrs. Kang made a plan for dinner. "Since we're out, shall we eat together?" Yoon Sol said happily, "Oh, I would love that." As they were leaving, someone called from behind, "Aunt Hae Suk." Both turned, and Yoon Sol's heart sank seeing Soo Jin standing there. Soo Jin greeted affectionately, "Oh, it's really you. It's been a long time, Auntie." Then her gaze fell on Yoon Sol and she was shocked. "Yoon Sol? What are you doing here with Aunt Hae Suk?" Yoon Sol quickly ran away from there, and Mrs. Kang kept calling her from behind. "Yoon!" But Soo Jin interrupted. "So, Auntie, which restaurant are we going to?" Later, while waiting for the bus, Yoon Sol thought, "What do I do now? I can't go straight home because I lied to Jun Young's mom about a group assignment. If I'm late, she'll be worried. Better tell her I'll be home soon." Then her attention went to Soo Jin. I had no idea Soo Jin was so close to Jun Young's family. While walking on the street, a car came from behind. Seo Kyun saw her and called out, "Yoon Sol, I knew it was you." He asked as he got out of the car. Yoon Sol asked in surprise, "What are you doing here?" He explained casually, "I was just dropping someone at the dorm." He teased her, seeing her dress. "Why are you wearing clothes like this? Were you on a blind date or going to a wedding?" She replied hesitantly, "I was just out." Seo Hyun grabbed her hand excitedly and said, "Where are you going now? You haven't had dinner yet. Let's eat something together." On the other hand, at TJ Corp, Jun Young was sitting at his desk staring at his phone. His friend Min Jin came over and asked, "What are you looking at?" He said, "My mom sent me the address of the restaurant." Min Jin said, laughing, "Isn't that place famous for dates? Maybe she wants you to join them since she's with Yoon Sol." Realizing this, Jun Young stood up immediately. He said, "Thanks, Min Jin," and left quickly. He thought, Yoon Sol didn't seem to be in a good mood this morning. Maybe this will cheer her up. Upon reaching the restaurant, the hostess sent Jun Young toward a private room. He walked in to surprise Yoon Sol. Mrs. Kang greeted him. "Oh, Jun Young, you're here." He replied, "Yes, Mom," and took his seat. But then he was shocked. "Soo Jin, what are you doing here? Mom, weren't you shopping?" Soo Jin said, smiling, "We met suddenly today. We saw Choi Yoon Seol too, but she left. You know her, right?" Jun Young's face fell, and he immediately took out his phone. He messaged Yoon Sol, "Where are you? Are you okay? Should I come pick you up?" Unable to stop his worry, he suddenly stood up and said, I'm sorry, but some very urgent work has come up. He apologized and rushed out, dialing her number. When Yoon Seol finally picked up the call, he asked sternly, Choi Yoon Seol, are you okay? How many times did I call you? On the other side of the phone, her voice was perfectly calm. I'm in front of the campus. It will take some time for me to get home. I'm having dinner with a friend. Jun Young's shoulders tensed when he heard a familiar voice from behind. It was Seok Hyun. So she's with Seok Hyun, and here I am worrying about her for no reason. But why is my mind so restless? And with that, this part ends here. Thanks for watching. If you're excited for the next chapter, let me know in the comments, and don't forget to hit the like button. Your feedback will tell me when to bring the next part, so stay tuned, and I will bring it soon.